start. I want to say hello and welcome everyone this evening. And I'm going to start with, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, the Scout sign. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Scout oath. On my honor, I will do my best to do my duty to God and my country, and to obey the Scout law, to help other people at all times, to keep myself physically strong, mentally awake, and morally straight. And the Scout law: a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. And the outdoor code, please. As an American, I will do my best to be clean in my outdoor manners, be careful with fire, be considerate in the outdoors, and be conservation minded. Okay. And so, there we go. So I want to turn this over at this point in time to Greg for council updates.
Hey, thank you, Ellie. I didn't have a chance to coordinate with everybody, so if there's something on the screen that you have more information you want to add, please do feel free to interject, and I'll back up if I move on too quickly. There's quite a bit of information. I think that the biggest news for me is that the pre-event medical screening checklist has been updated finally. A lot of people were concerned that if they had even talked to somebody that had COVID, they weren't supposed to attend something for 14 days, even if they tested negative. So you're going to want to check that. If you just, the link is there, and it's in the safety moments for medical. It's a much better user-friendly form today. It really just says follow the CDC guidelines and your local guidelines now. That's good news for all of us. Some reminders about functional role updates. If you have people in your unit that you want to give access to advancement information, training information, to be able to approve registration inquiries, even giving them rights as a Key 3 delegate, you can Key 3s can do that in My.Scouting in their organizational manager. One that I really want to point out though is the COR delegate. Only the COR can assign that person, or the institutional head, which is the COR, can add that person, and it gives them some additional tools under this area called registered position that is new. So in the example that's on the screen right now, that if Stephen, the charter org rep, wants to take Greg as the Scoutmaster and make them a Scouter Reserve, that person alone can click and drag them down there. There's no adult application required. They can move them into the positions that they want them. So one of the things that units are starting to use this for is all in for scouting. If they had a lot of assistant scoutmasters, in this case there were 12 of them listed here, but some of them really just wanted a membership with the Boy Scouts. They weren't fully trained as an assistant scoutmaster. The COR can drag that name and move them into a unit Scouter Reserve or a college Scouter Reserve, and get them out of a direct contact leader position without paperwork. They should just have that conversation so they're not surprised. But only the COR or their delegate can do that. Some program updates. WOA has been incredibly attended, over 200 people there this past month, and there's a group that took the Cub Scout elective adventures that we had hoped to do in Holyoke in January, got snowed out, and the COVID surge impacted it. They're doing them now each month at WOA. Last month they were like on an hourly rotation. They're going to run all day long now, so you can just drop in with your whole group. AT and Metacomet are planning spring camporees. You can find more information online about those. Information about the program is yet to come, but if you're interested in helping, please reach out. This is the invitation. You're being asked here. Don't wait for somebody to call. They're looking for people to help plan and run stations and registration table, etc. And a call for some adult recognition, Silver Beaver particularly, but also all 3 of our districts have special recognition for District Award of Merit and Spark Plug and Unit Leader recognitions. So now is the time to be getting those in. Pinewood Derbies, there's a lot on this page, but in essence, Metacomet starts this Saturday, and all 3 districts are allowing the top 3 cars from each pack derby to race, and any pack that either will not have a derby this year or will not have one by the time of the district derby, all youth cars are allowed to enter. So register online for those. Registration's $7.50 a car, and they also are all having an open class. So adults, siblings, those AOLs that haven't crossed over yet but don't have a category in the race can all enter in the open class, and they can move on to our council derby on May 22nd. Online training, I've reviewed this before, My.Scouting, but also Appalachian Trail is continuing their online series, and they're offering a little bit of both in person and online. So look for on their training page as well as on the calendar. The next one is going to be Merit Badge Counselor training on the 19th of April. A lot of in-person. The Ranger and Steve Scannell have added a chainsaw basics training. So if you want to help up at camp especially, you have to have this training regardless of your background. And if you've never used a chainsaw but always wanted to, here's your chance as well. Scoutmaster IOLF is happening early April. And so if you have Scoutmasters and Assistant Scoutmasters that aren't fully trained, they can do the prerequisite online and then get their training on April 2nd for future All-In for Scouting incentives. Cub Scouts, end of April, we'll have the Baloo. 1 person from each Cub Scout unit needs to be Baloo trained on an overnight campout. So there's a way to get that taken care of, and Wood Badge registration is up and running. So you can find more online about that as well, or speak to Mary Benjamin. A little teaser, Ellie. I don't know if I played my sound though.
You did.
And in the past, Wood Badge was a 6-day course. It has changed to a 5-day course. So it's a 3-day weekend and then a 2-day weekend. So those of you that work more traditional Monday through Friday, it's just 1 day off of work now. And we also have the youth leadership equivalent of that open. Space is limited. Last year we were full. Sometime in April, it was full. So it's based on staffing, but the plan is that to be able to take 6 female learners into the female troop and 42 male learners into the male troop. And I know Mr. Burke is still looking for even some more additional female youth to add to that staff, but that registration is also open. Summer camp, I'm not going to read all of this on here, but Registration's coming in, and we're filling up. We're about ready to close week 2 for overnight campers. We'll keep it open for day campers, but come and join us. We also are adding a specialty week the end of July into August for aquatics and Trail to Eagle for our older Scouts only. So that won't include Cub Scouts, but Cub Scouts all 4 weeks in the middle, along with Scouts BSA. And just want to put some information down there about asking units to make their commitment last fall. That worked out really well for us, and units saved almost $6,000 by doing that. And our attendance already, we're at 52% of what we can take, and our budget is doing really well. So get signed up soon. Last year, 26 units signed up after the early bird sign, which meant their price went up by $50. So we want to try to get everyone registered by April 1st. And this is just showing you on the left was people that had signed up for the early bird last year, and on the right, some of the ones that are in white are returning, and the yellow are new units that have signed up for the first time with us as early birds. Now, a lot of out of council folks coming in. So we want to save you some money. So April 1st, we're looking for that deposit of $100 per person. You can go in today with $100 and just let us know that you're coming, and then add the rest April 1st. Looking for staff always. We love staff to come and stay for the whole summer overnight with us, but we can have some folks that come for the day only if they need to. And then this auxiliary staff, we've had a couple of people that say, I can come in 1 day a week and do a merit badge. And we'd love to talk to you about that as well. We learned recently that we need a new shooting sports director. So if you know somebody with NRA rifle and shotgun instructor training and available for the summer, please have them reach out to us. That's a really important need that we have, and looking for youth staff as well. Full week, we are going to offer the 2 half weeks this year, so folks can come on Wednesday and leave on Saturday as well, so they can get Wednesday and Thursday merit badges in for that partial week, and continuing with our day only for Scouts BSA and Cub Scouts. So anybody can do any of those options. This is just saying, kind of explaining the categories, who oversees the Scouts. So back to the video on that one. And store hours haven't changed, but here are the Saturday openings, including this coming Saturday. We'll be open 10 to 2. And again, we're happy to bring stuff up to WOA for pickup. And come get involved. This week I had 3 different people tell me nobody asked them. Please consider yourself asked. Come on out and join us at district committee meetings. And then if you're involved in any of these activities, we hope you'll join us on the 17th. The meeting's under 60 minutes and what everybody's doing. And our next work day is on April 2nd. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, Greg. Moving on, do we have anything from our council commissioner, Joshua?
Ellie, I've got a question.
Yeah, hi, Neil.
Hi, I was just wondering, you talked about the camporees. Is there any information on the camporees yet for unit leaders to prepare for different events or cost factors or anything? I'm looking especially for Knox Street.
General Knox, there's no camporee. Nobody has stepped up to organize one for General Knox. And I know AT and Metacomet are both working on those. Metacomet has their planning meeting Wednesday night, and Hunter is working on program for AT. So
General Knox is listed. General Knox is listed for having the camporee April 29th to May 1st in Lee. So somebody's doing something.
That's Appalachian Trail.
Okay. I thought I saw it in General Knox, but okay. Thank you.
Anybody can go to any of them.
All right.
Okay. Okay, Joshua, any updates from our council commissioner? Is Joshua on?
Joshua is not here tonight.
Okay, that's why I'm not hearing him.
No, he's out. He's got a meeting with the two boys.
All right. Fritz, any updates on youth protection training? Is Fritz not here tonight?
I'm here. I was trying to unmute. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I'm glad some folks came that I invited. I appreciate seeing you guys here. As far as youth protection is concerned, this is the time of year when youth protection certifications begin to run out. So please ask your unit leader, or if it's a date on your calendar, take a look at your calendar and make sure that you renew. I see a couple faces, I'm not going to mention them, whose youth protection training has already expired. So you should not be meeting with youth at this point until you renew your training. Unit leaders, you can find out who or what the standing is of your adults by going to my.scouting.org, going to your unit pages, and looking at the training rosters. You can easily open those and look at them, and it will tell you who's youth protection trained and when that training will expire and who needs to take it now. And if I can, right now, a very small percentage of our district youth, General Knox, our district adults rather, have expired youth protection trainings, and some of those folks are not renewing their membership. And I get it while they're still on the list. What does bother me, and I've mentioned this before, is fewer than 50% of our unit leaders are position-specific trained. And so my concern always is, how can you deliver a quality program if you don't know what your job is? So please, if you haven't taken position-specific training, they're all available online. Please go and take those. And get to understand what your position is and how to do your job so you can help your unit be a quality unit. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Fritz. Great. Do we have any district updates from anyone? Okay, hearing none, I will move on to introducing Nick Thornton. And Nick is gracious enough to join us this evening for a whole session devoted to fundraising and how and where to find that pot of gold. So with that, Nick, I will mute and let you have at it. If anyone has any questions, though, either raise your hand or please put a message into chat for Nick to be able to see it. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. I guess I'll start real quick with some of the ones that came in through the emails earlier from Greg. And the first question is, can youth and youths create and solicit funds through GoFundMe? That was actually a big question because GoFundMe is kind of taken off as crowdsourcing and things like that, especially during COVID. The answer is no, unless it's tied to a specific project, such as an Eagle project or a project. Scouts are not permitted to raise funds by soliciting donations directly. We have to provide value for the money received by either selling a product, popcorn, candy bars, holiday items, or performing a service. So that's the answer to the GoFundMe question. What are effective fundraiser for older scouts / venturers? So talking about some of those more effective fundraisers for older scouts, I've been around to, I think this is now technically my 6th council I've worked in by 12 years. So, you know, I've seen bottles and can drives, yard charges, which is basically yard work or a project where you post in your church or your charter organization that during this weekend you'll be hosting, you can sign up for service hours for certain projects and yard work. And there's also been some interesting ones such as like electronic drives. So you work with a company that does recycling electronics, they bring out a truck and they pay you by weight and the number of items that come out. And you can do that as a town-wide thing. And so I've seen really great success with those. Obviously, product sales of all different types, spaghetti suppers and things like that still raise a lot of money for scouting. They are kind of the standard tried and true. So looking for what's allowed and what's not allowed. There is a guide to unit money earning projects and also the unit money earning application. That's basically where you're going to find all your answers for what's not allowed. But just a quick thing, no direct solicitation of money without either goods provided, no games of chance, so no gambling, no 50-50. There was a question about calendar raffles. Raffles aren't allowed because the value of what they get, unless they win, does not equal the money that they're paying. So the value has to be perceived as being equal to the amount of the donation that they're giving. You can't have Boy Scouts and stuff in uniform with alcohol being served. You can't have Scouts making direct solicitations to large groups. Also, this ties into another question. You don't want to have, let's see here, what's that question? Sorry. So you don't want to have the Boy Scouts trading on the good name of scouting in general without approval for the council. So you do have to have approval for the council. That means you need to turn in for any kind of fundraising activity a unit money earning application 2 weeks before the event. That way it can be approved and vetted through scouting, and that way it becomes an official BSA event. And that way, if anything does happen, there would be coverage for those as a scouting activity under the insurance policy. So some of these things, I know there was a question about a Friends of group being created to kind of go around scouting. It doesn't really, you can't stop it from happening, but it's not ethical or moral because unless you started a 501c3, it's not an official nonprofit. And so you can't use the Scout name without BSA approval, and being an unofficial Friends of does not exclude you from those policies. And I think there was one more question. Why aren't a-thons allowed, like bowl-a-thons and hike-a-thons? They are allowed if they are tied to a specific project. Again, they have to go to benefit the community in some certain way. The other thing is when you're doing these things, the project, people that are benefiting from the project, say your charter organization, can't pay you to do the project. It has to be in the scouting manner of that we are giving back to the community. So they can't make say they're going to make a donation to the troop if you do this. It's not a quid pro quo. It's we support our charter organizations. We want to do service projects for them anyways. And if they want to make a donation through them to support scouting of their own good nature, but they can't tie it into a project. So those are the questions that I had so far. And now I will take any questions or clear anything up that I didn't hit on.
I do see one in the chat
Yep.
from Matt. Can
Okay,
you
Matt.
remind us? Yeah.
Yep, thank you. The uniform guidelines say that scouts are not supposed to be in uniform unless it's council approved. There are kind of standard ones, but we haven't put this out in the past because I think we've gotten so used to it. So technically, any fundraiser that it approves needs to have approval from the council, which gets voted on by the board, that scouts can wear their uniform. That includes popcorn sales. But that's the one I'm saying we've kind of gotten away from because every scout stands out there wearing their uniform. But you also can't wear your uniform and raise money for another charity So we can't ring the bells for Salvation Army and Scout uniforms, even though, I think that might help them. But there's certain things that are just in our practices that Nationals laid out for us, and that is how it's set up. But if you do want to wear a uniform for, a hike-a-thon that you're putting on or a car wash, you can do that. So the clarification is you can do a community serve-a-thon, but the project itself has to benefit the organization. It has to have a certain project tied to it. So it could be tied to building new benches for a park or something like that. So a hike-a-thon would be okay if it's tied into a project, just like fundraising for an Eagle project is very similar to that.
So if your project was trail improvements, then you could do a hike-a-thon that kind of goes along with that.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's the thing though, you want to find a project that kind of benefits the community, but also highlights what Scouts do a lot of times. So, if you're going to do a car wash, like a Scout is clean, a Scout is clean car wash or something like that. And, community days where you're picking up trash on the thing and or repainting things, and the people are making donations to support these service projects that we're already going to do anyways. It's not just so we could have extra money in our unit account. Any more questions? Oh,
yeah.
Ellie, thank you.
So Nick, to clarify, if a scout or a troop is planning on going to Philmont or to Sea Base, they can hold a fundraiser specifically for that, as long as it's dedicated for that, correct?
So this is the gray area, because that's technically not a project. That's a direct benefit to the Scout themselves. But if you come to the council for approval about those things, I'm not supposed to say this, but 99% of the time we'll say yes, but you need to say how you're going to use those funds of any excess, right? What are they going to be used for? And you have to prove how those funds are going to be exactly spent per each person. We look at those a lot stricter than if you were having a project saying you are going to we're going to buy some new stuff for our charter organization. Like they say, our picnic tables in the basement of the church are broken, we need to replace those. So if that's a project that you're interested in funding because it helps your charter organization, we're not going to look into that as deeply as we are going to say, hey, we want to send 15 kids to Philmont, and so we need to raise $15,000 and make sure that each one of those dollars is accounted for.
Okay.
Oh, yes, Mary?
Yeah, I just have a question, and you may have already covered it because my speakers kind of went out a little bit. But if we wanted to raise general funds for the PAC, as far as possibly being able to chip in to pay for scouts, all of the scouts to go somewhere, I don't know, apple picking or what have you. And a place like a trampoline park has approached us to do a fundraiser, as far as you pick a certain night and it's 2 hours and you get a percentage of the sales. Is that something that could be done? Or sometimes they also do it with restaurants?
You can do that. So like
Okay.
there are some of like the Uno's making dough, like where you buy pizzas. But you will also have to make sure it's a Scout approved function. I'm not sure. I don't know if trampolines are falling into that category anymore, because I know they made some changes. But you can't do things for fundraisers that aren't Scout approved functions as well.
Okay.
Oh, Monique, you got your hand up?
Yeah, I had a question. You had said something about not being in uniform, say if you're collecting money for the Salvation Army or something like that.
Yeah.
My Scout troop does a lot of community service work for an animal shelter, and we've collected pet food donations actually on a regular basis for this shelter, not cash donations, but food. We typically do it in our uniforms. Is that allowed?
So you would have to fill out a application, money earning application, even though it's not a, it's more of a gift in kind is what we call those, when someone makes a donation of goods instead of cash. And then we could approve that they wear their uniforms during that event. So those types of events, they just need uniform approval. The thing is, a lot of us have gotten out of the practice, and I was guilty of this because I didn't even know this before I got into this position, that you actually had to ask permission and it had to be voted on, including the popcorn sale. I just always assumed that we just wore our scouting uniform to all fundraising things because that's what we did.
And I have one more piggyback question on this. When you
Yep.
fill out the application, can you put it just like, because I know typically when we submit them, it's for a certain time period for candy bar sales or popcorn sales. But if it's something that we do on a regular basis, can you just put, you know, ongoing?
You
In the
have to fill it
application?
out on a yearly basis.
Mhm.
You'd have to fill it out at least on a yearly basis. That way we would know that those are still ongoing projects. So if something does happen, that we would know it's then Scout approved for the year. Oh,
Thank you.
Nick,
Elliot.
Greg here.
oh, yep, go ahead.
I was just
ahead,
going to
Greg.
say it doesn't happen a lot, but we do also get phone calls into the service center asking if fundraisers are legitimate or we're aware of them, just making sure that, and we do keep a shared spreadsheet here in the office for all the staff to be able to access to see, to answer those questions of what we're aware of and what we know of as approved.
Okay, thanks, Greg. My question, Nick, has to do with fundraisers at community events. Here in our town, we have an annual 4th of July event, and only the nonprofit organizations from within the town are allowed to sell food at this event. It's the food booths are restricted for them. And so one of the troops usually does a whole food booth, fried dough, that kind of thing. All of that money goes back into the troop, and from those funds, they usually work to pay the charter renewal for youth and leaders. They cover everybody through the fundraising. How does that work? Is that allowed? And or is that
It is allowed, but the thing is, when you do any kind of food service or any kind of project at all, you have to make sure you have the proper permits. So for serving food, you have to have someone who's safe serve and make sure you have all those things, and you've worked with the town to make sure you pulled the right permits. We do, those laws supersede ours. I did get in trouble in my second to last, so in Cleveland. We had talked to someone who had a private parking lot, and we were selling popcorn before the Cleveland Browns games. And then one of the scouts happened to walk into another parking lot, and we didn't have a permit to be there. And then the cop said, you know, this is your one warning, you will stay in this parking lot, kind of thing. So you have to make sure that you are following the town and the laws that are laid out there for us. But that is an approved fundraiser. Just make sure the paperwork's filled out.
Thanks.
And there is another one. Peter asked the dining give back nights. Those are allowed. I think I mentioned that. It's kind of like the trampoline nights, or the Uno's ones where you can give back money, you know, for all the people that show up. So those are approved fundraisers, because people are getting something of value for the dollars that they're spending. They are getting food in the value of what their donation is. If you plan to have a monthly, I'm sorry, I'm reading one off the thing.
To piggyback on my question, Nick,
Yep.
alcohol's involved or food. No. Like the patrons at the Roadhouse, they have the option to either get a Coke or a beer.
Yep.
That
So typically, we say only the food portions of the sale can go back to benefit scouting. The
Okay.
drink totals are not supposed to be tallied up into those.
Okay.
Sorry, Nikki is, she had her hand up and then she typed in there. Yes, so if you know you're gonna do a monthly fundraiser for like a year of bottle and can drives, yes, just fill out the form, as I mentioned to Monique in advance, because you do this on a kind of an ongoing basis. And then you can just figure out the dates afterwards, because obviously we know throughout the year you have things that come up and volunteer schedules conflicts, and you have to move things, and you know, getting people and herding the cats to make these fundraisers happen isn't always easy. So yes, you just make sure you fill it out and you're covered for the year. I think I'm not seeing any more questions. There we go. Yes, Aaron, the Class B would be, because it has the Scout, if it has Scouts names or logo on there, it's explicitly using, you know, identified as the Boy Scouts. So it would be covered under the uniforms.
Anyone else? Okay.
Oh, someone raised their hand. Lynn.
Yes. Good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Back in 2011, both my boys did service hours for the Salvation Army at the Eastfield Mall in uniform with silly little antlers and for 4 or 5 hours, but it was only for service hours. Is that allowed anymore, or?
So you're not, what were they doing specifically? Because we're not supposed to raise dollars, so we can't ring the bell and ask for straight donations. You could go to the Salvation Army and sort clothes. You could go there and go through the donation bins. You could help customers. You could volunteer that for your service hours, but you can't ask the general public for donations for another organization.
Well, we're not allowed to talk, but we just ring the bell with the silly antlers on.
Yeah.
But it was
you
back in
can't do that.
2011, so no more,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah. No.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Nick?
Yes.
On that, I just want to clarify, sorry if I'm asking too many questions. When we have been doing work for the shelter, we have been given donations. We haven't solicited, but we do a pet food pantry
Yep.
twice a month and people have come up to us when we're giving out pet food and given us cash to give to the pantry. Are we allowed to pass that along? Do we have to say no?
No, you can. So someone, if you're in good faith, not trying to solicit those money directly yourself, you can take that money and pass it on. It does happen. We know, but that's not the intent of the fundraiser, right? The fundraiser is not intended to directly ask people for cash donations. We're asking them for goods. So if someone does, you do need to account for that though, and make that known when you hand off the food. Obviously, you've been doing that, so that's fine.
I have another question, Nick. One of the units I used to commission somehow had someone donating a vehicle to charity, and they had designated on the form that it go to this particular troop without the troop even knowing it, and the money just showed up somehow magically, either via check or because the person had connections with the troop, knew the troop's bank account, and the money magically appeared as a donation from a vehicle. Is that kind of thing allowed, and do you know how all of that works?
Yes, and so I should say kind of and yes, because you're not supposed to, ask people to donate their car. But if someone does leave money, the question that always arises from this is, the money should technically go to the charter organization, as they are the owner of the unit. And they would then have to pass the money down to the troop. Because it couldn't come through the council. So if someone donated a car to the Western Massachusetts Council for Troop 111, the council cannot then pass that money on, as is considered money laundering. Because we've had this come up before. So it would have to go right to the charter organization, and then that would be up to the charter organization's discretion. It's the owner of the 501c3, which is either some units have their own, but most of them are but the charter organization reps, because that's the only way they can get the tax break as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Nick, Greg here.
Yep.
I want to, the question of ringing the bells for Salvation Army is one example. I just want to throw out that scouts that are doing that, perhaps for one of their merit badge requirements or rank advancements, they are still able to do that, but they should not be doing it in their scout uniform. So they're just doing it as community service in their own street clothes, and they can count that towards advancement. But using the image and the name of the scouting is the piece that's prohibited, correct?
That is correct. All right, Matt had another question. No, as a nonprofit organization, we should always try to be thrifty. So if we can have extra money at the end of the year and roll into the next year and leave things better than we found it, we should try to do that. But the thing is, you shouldn't be trying to, have $1 million in your bank account. The thing is, you should be able to have enough money to fund several months of program. And that's kind of what we look at as a council too. Successful council should be able to run 6 months of liquid from their assets of 6 months of operations. And I think that kind of rolls over to the packs and troops as well. Is if you be able to take your accounts, and if money dried up and COVID happened again, but everyone, and no one had any money to give and things like that, you'd still be able to operate, carry out with your traditional function for the next several months without impacting your bottom line finances.
Can I add to that too, Nick?
Yep.
The nonprofit is part of the tax code, not an operational directive. And the piece there is that individuals within the organization do not personally benefit they benefit as a whole, not individually benefit and from the funds.
So that brings me to another question then. How does that work for units that have what they refer to as scout accounts? So say we're talking about a youth, they're running a cannon bottle drive, and the monies are apportioned to each scout in their scout account based on the number of hours they worked at the cannon bottle drive. And those monies may be used for things like purchasing scouting gear, for camp registration, those kinds of things. How does that work?
So this is an interesting question, because this is one of those ones that falls into the gray area. So the thing is, what I can tell you about scout accounts, so BSA National kind of frowns on them because there's so much gray area there. But the only thing I can tell you about scout accounts is whatever money is raised must be used for scout goods or functions. It can't go on to something else. When that scout leaves, that money does not leave with the scout. It's not their personal bank account. It goes back, reverts back into the unit. So that's how that works. It's not a savings account for them. It's not a checking account when they leave. It's not to pay for college textbooks. It is for scouting functions and programs only. If they need a uniform, that counts as a scouting thing. But most councils will tell you that if they are not permitted because they become an IRS nightmare if your charter organization ever gets audited, because they then have to because they own the troop, then they have to go through your books and they have to go through each individual scout account as well. And that just becomes a more of a nightmare for the charter organizations.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. I know it doesn't help very much, but it's from 2014. Greg just posted that. Yeah, Steve McGowan is I think he's our BSA national legal guy, and he has been in that position for as long as I've been in the profession, I think. But he posted a blog in 2014 about this very thing. There was another one. Oh, that was the same thing. Yeah, so obviously you want to make sure the money is used for scouting functions and scouting goods and things like that only. Yes, George.
I was just going to say that I know with scout accounts, at least with our charter organization, I mean, every year we turn in a treasurer's report. So in that treasury report, scout accounts, it's just a spreadsheet. It's not actual accounts or anything. It's just, these are the funds we have. Here's the funds that went out. These, you know, I mean, just bottom line, it's not like broken out into individual stuff. Most of the kids, I can say, at least the scout accounts is just a way to pay most of their trips and stuff. I hardly ever get anything I see come in. I think in a blue moon, I'm in 15 years, maybe a tent. You know, like a scout want to use funds to buy a tent or something like that, but usually it goes for registration trips and things.
Yep.
You know, another question is, you mentioned about soliciting funds and stuff, and we talk about GoFundMe, how it's a specific account. How does Amazon Smile work? And there's a lot of groups like that because our council is one of them that's taking in donations. It's not earmarked for anything. I know other troops have been doing it. How's that work?
So Amazon Smile is a donation where people can sign up as a 501c3. So you have to be a registered 501c3. So troops, unless they hold their own nonprofit, are not allowed to set up their own
Charter organization. I mean,
the charter organization can.
Right.
Yeah, so the charter organization can go ahead and do that. And once they do that, a percentage of anyone who buys using that identification under that Amazon Smile will get a small kickback on any purchases throughout. I think it's quarterly through the year. It's usually cents on, like 1 cent or a couple cents per transaction. It's not big dollars. Biggest money usually comes in during the Black Friday or Cyber Monday.
Right.
And so you can get some money from that. And it can be done, but it just has to be set up properly. Like I said, troops aren't allowed to do it unless they work with their charter organization to set it up through them.
Right. But the funds that come in aren't earmarked for anything. It's just operations, I take it, right? It's, in a sense, you're soliciting. Again, not directly, but indirectly, you're signing up and a percentage of the purchase come back to you. So I get it.
Yeah, you're doing a little, it's a little ticky tack for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not supposed to be direct solicitations. But it's a lot of charities have been doing those, like Roundup for the nearest dollar kind of thing. And I don't know what the BSA is going to do with this because this is not really, I don't think, been addressed on the national fundraising level.
Mm-hmm. I do know several. Well, you mentioned it earlier about, you know, friends of, right, that have formed 501c3s. They do not use the word scouts. They're friends of Troop 7. Then there you go. I'm not for it. I think it, you know, it basically doesn't teach our scouts, you know, I mean, the skirt around the issues, but I've seen some troops have had great success with that because that, again, allows them, those parents or that group, it's not even troop. So it's a whole different group that's not youth run. These are adults that are you know, doing fundraising stuff to earmark funds for Eagle projects and summer camps or Philmonts. or
So
things
the
like
Friends
that.
of Scouting or the Friends of movement really started in, I think in the late 80s, early 90s, when the PTAs of all the schools pulled out from being charter partners.
Mhm.
And so the parents of those units then, instead of working around the PTAs and trying to find new charter organizations, said, we're going to start our own. And so they went and started the Friends of the Troop. And so they formed their own committee, started their own 501c3, got their own bank accounts, and they became the governing body, essentially establishing themselves as charter organization. Now that people are just doing that strictly for fundraising is a little different than the original intent for what it was started for. But I know some units that are still forming using that because their charter partner during COVID said, we can't meet anymore, you can't use the space. So they went out and started a Friends of. So it depends on your intent for doing it. And I'm with you, it kind of skirts around some of the issues. But you know, I'm not here to police all of that, but just trying to tell you what BSA is allowing people to do and not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions? Okay. Well, I want to thank you, Nick. It was very informative. I have pages and pages of notes that I will be sorting through. But usually towards the end of Roundtable, we also have an open forum for people who have other questions about any other things. So is there anybody who has any questions, any topics they want to bring up before we go to closing? I'm not seeing anybody with anything. Okay. All right. So we will go to closing. All right. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight and for coming, sharing your questions, getting some answers. I'm looking in chat. Has importing rosters to Tentaroo started? Do we have an answer to that? Art, maybe, do you know if posting rosters to Tentaroo? I think you're muted, Art.
Yeah, I'm not really even sure what the question means. I really don't have anything to do with Tentaroo.
So Renee, do you want to clarify, please?
Am I unmuted? In the weekly email, like the Compass or the newsletter or whatever it is, it said starting March 1st that chartered rosters were going to start being imported into Tentaroo in advance of, summer camp and signing up for merit badges. And I was wondering if that's starting to happen yet. Because when I looked last week, my Tentaroo account has scouts listed in there that haven't been in the roster for like 8 years or more. And of the 50 or so scouts, only like 3 of them are actually still members. So I just wanted to know if, should I just start doing the data entry myself, or are things going to be imported and maybe make that process easier?
As I said, I don't have really anything to do with it. I can try and ask and see if I can find someone who does. I know it's been in the news as a piece of information that came to us from Tentaroo telling us to publish it. So that's what I know. I mean, Tentaroo emailed it to us and we sent it out to you.
Art, can you repeat that? I had to step out of the room.
Renee is asking about the Tentaroo roster update. When is that going to start? It hasn't, according to what she can see. She's got people in there from a very long time ago.
So we don't delete anybody from the account. We will go through and update from the current roster. We will add people to it. It's a manual process. We have 375 accounts in there to go through. So it's a very slow, tedious process, unfortunately. And there's a new snafu with the number of units that are using the same number for boy and girl troops. We are not able to identify the difference in the database. So there's some holdups there, unfortunately. Units can manually start adding their folks, but you would want to use the same first, middle, and last name, and their membership ID would be helpful. But you can delete old people. They don't ever actually leave. They just, there's a place that you can always go back and find deleted people.
Right. Yeah, because I was looking for like a kind of a delete all button, because that would have been so much easier and just re-add, because it gives you that pop-up that says, you know, if you delete them, you can bring them back. And if I could just delete them all and just bring back the few that are still active, you know, that doesn't seem to be functionality that's there.
That's correct. You have to do them one at a time. And if they've been gathering for 6 years, 7, 8 years, yeah, it can be pretty extensive. We also, a number of units are putting girls on the boys troop accounts and or vice versa. They're just using one, and that's becoming problematic for the sync as well.
Okay.
Ellie, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Is the next roundtable going to be at Moses?
Okay. The April roundtable is virtual. We're going to be talking about STEM and STEM awards. And then May, the roundtable will be at WOA with STEM hands-on.
Okay. When they're at Moses, is there also a Zoom meeting connected with that, or only live?
No, it's only been live.
Okay.
We have typically been out near the pavilion, and so we don't have the ability there to do anything with going virtual with a Zoom.
Okay. So
Okay.
April is still Zoom. Okay. Thank you.
April is Zoom and May is hands-on STEM. I'm also seeing a concern from Julia. You had a question?
What is STEM?
Science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay.
And there are awards at Cub Scout and Scouts BSA, and Rebecca will correct me if there's also something at the crew and ship levels. But there are awards specifically for the STEM, the science, technology, engineering, and math.
If it's going to be science and technology, you think somebody will be able to do a Zoom from up at camp?
Part of it depends on the location.
Yeah, well, as long as they got power and can make a connection on Wi-Fi. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Our Wi-Fi is a satellite, and it's a very low frequency satellite feed that we get, so it's challenging, but we're working on it. Ellie, if I can respond to NYLT questions.
Yep.
We also have concerns about the limitation of females. This is a BSA national change in format, that they are not allowing integrated troops on NYLT, that they need to be male and female troops that have shared training, just like the link. So it's a linked troop, and there needs to be a female SDL, and there needs to be a female troop guide, and additional female staffs. And unfortunately, the invitations have gone out, but not enough of the female scouts have accepted the offer to be on staff. So we're currently we are limited to 6, but if you have scouts, especially female scouts that are NYLT trained and have not been asked, we might, especially if they did out of council training, we can reach out to Jim Burke, the course director, to see if we can add more, but it is out of our control, unfortunately. There is no waiting list right now for females. NYLT's been open for over a month, and only maybe 2 people have signed up. So if you know you have girls, get in there. That $50 deposit is being collected.
We have, because we're a relatively new troop, I'm Julia. A lot of our girls are approaching first class, and they're really hoping to get there for June, but we know August would be a second. But my concern is with only 6 slots, and them not having the appropriate rank, can we still put them down and hold that spot and just hope that they're there? Or, and then if not, then okay. It's just.
I would reach out to Mr. Burke, and we hear what you're saying, Julia.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I can't put my picture up. I don't have a camera, but
that's okay.
And there are other NYLT courses around at other councils. We don't want to send people away, but we are trying to find staff to be able to. So I would reach out to Mr. Burke with your specific questions.
What did you say that? I'm sorry. Did you say you needed scoutmasters, female scoutmasters to join?
No, it would be a senior patrol leader. So he needs more female youth.
Oh, I don't think okay, thank you.
Last year was the first year locally, and there were only 5 girls in it. So yeah, I can see how he's having trouble staffing it.
But there are girls that have gone out of council, but we don't always know who they are. But yeah, it's a small pool. And BSA made this change just in the last couple of months. So last year, it could have been, the entire group could have been female learners. This year, it's dependent upon the female staff.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions before we go to closing? Believe it or not, today is the anniversary of the day when Alexander Graham Bell received a patent for the telephone. His intention was to create a harmonic telegraph, as he called it, that combined the aspects of the telegraph with a recording to allow people to speak to each other from a distance. And over time, we have seen many changes in all of these devices, but 146 years later, we're using them not just to speak to each other, but we're texting and we're Skyping or FaceTiming, and we're taking photos. We are playing games. We are doing internet research. We are doing a million things with our phones. And my closing wish for all of you tonight is to keep using your phone, keep in touch, and keep that information flowing with our scouts, with their leaders, and with their families. So have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Have a great month, and keep on talking. Have a good night, everyone.